created this show with one thing in mind, for sales professionals to share their secrets with each other. Join us every Wednesday at 12 to 12:30 Eastern Time, or sign up for updates on Mike's mailing list at salessensesolutions.com. Mike appreciates you listening and wishes you good luck on your next sales call.
Well, welcome. It's Mike Krause with the Sales Sense Reality Talk Show. I'm ecstatic to have Kelley Robertson with us today. And he began his sales career in men's clothing, and we're going to talk about that. And he's gone through a lot of trials and tribulations through his life, and he's extensive experience and written many, many books, many blogs. And I encourage you to go out and check him out at fearless-selling.ca. So without further ado, Kelley, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Mike. And you?
Awesome. No complaints. So we were just talking about that in the green room, how nice weather is up here, and you're in Toronto, and I'm right across the pond in Rochester, New York, and we seem to have the same weather pattern today, which is nice.
That's absolutely. It's been a long time coming.
It has. So tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, Kelley, your background, and kind of give a flavor to the listeners of your experience.
Sure. Started my sales career way back in the 70s selling men's clothing. Failed miserably at it. Didn't have a clue how to sell. Nobody taught me how to sell. Didn't last very long. And so I went through a whole variety of career changes. And then back in the mid-'90s, ended up with Sony Canada as their manager of retail training. And that's when I got the taste for sales. And since then I've been a student of sales. I've been passionate about selling, and so my whole focus now in business and in life is helping people improve their sales, master sales conversations so they can win more business and make more money.
Absolutely, and I like how you said you struggled too, and just like myself and just all the great people as well have struggled early on in their sales career, and we've kind of fallen down and picked ourselves up and brushed ourselves off. And just like you said, there wasn't a lot of professionals out there in the sales training industry, guru industry, to help us along in that fashion. What are some things that you've learned over your travels that you could share with the listeners that said, if you do this, you can help yourself be a little bit more successful?
That's a good question, and the reason I say that's a good question is there are so many things that can help. I think the one concept that can help you become the most successful is to really study and learn from people who are good at what they do. And whether it's people like you and I who do this for a living, or even the best salesperson in your company, having coffee with him or her or inviting them to lunch, and getting a sense for how they approach the sales process, how they deal with prospects and customers, how they handle objections, how they position their product or their service or their solution. If you learn from other people, if you take the time and put your own ego aside and say, I'm going to learn something from this person, and then apply that to your own particular business and natural sales style, and if you do that enough, you can't help but get good.
Absolutely, and what practice makes us almost perfect, right?
Well, absolutely, and providing the practice that you're doing is the right type of practice for sure.
Absolutely, and let's go back to the objection handling, because I know in your experience and my experience, that's one of the pain points that, boy, really drives a salesperson up the wall. What are some strategies that you and I can share with the listeners that is worked on your end and was worked on my end to help the struggling sales rep out there?
The first thing that I've found is that one of the primary reasons objections are expressed is because the salesperson or the person selling whatever product or service they represent hasn't done a good enough job demonstrating the value. And the reason that happens is that far too many salespeople just launch into a sales pitch without investing an ample amount of time at the beginning of that sales conversation to ask good, thought-provoking questions to get a better sense of the prospect or customer's challenges, their current situation, the internal politics they have to deal with, the goals and objectives they want to accomplish, and then how that whole decision-making process works. And I think far too often what happens is salespeople think that telling is selling, and that's the title of a book I read years ago, and I still see it prevalent today. I had a guy cold call me this morning, and he had come across an article that I had written and said, I've got this great thing for you. And he asked me one or two quick questions and then just launched into pitching his product. And it was easy for me to tune him out because I had no interest in what he was pitching.
Isn't that so true? And I get those sales calls too. And I guess no matter how hard you and I try to change the thought process out there in some salespeople is they just still don't get it. It's about the client. It's about the customer. It's about finding out Kelley's pain points and what he has on his website. I mean, you have your own website. The person can really do a thorough investigation on either one of us.
For sure.
And to prepare for that call. Going back to your other statement, too, there is like they just go right into the sales pitch. And I don't know if you agree with the following statement, but no one cares about your company. Do you agree with that?
100%. 100%.
Yeah, it's get over it. If you go in there and start asking more questions about their business and their challenges, and you're there as a resource to help them, and you're using consultative selling or whatever model you're using, but if you're telling instead of showing, you're just it's a recipe for disaster. And the topic of the show here, objection handling. You're going to get more objection handling, just like Kelley said. You have not delivered a clear, concise value message to them.
For sure.
When the objection comes up, why do you, besides that they want clarification, why do people object?
There are a few reasons, and I think the first thing is to understand the difference between an objection, a condition of sale, and a request for information. And sometimes what happens is a prospect or a customer will ask a question, and the salesperson perceives it as an objection. And what happens when they get that sense of defensiveness, they become more defensive, and then they try to, I won't say attack the other person, but really try to stress the value of their product. And quite often it's just the prospect asking a question. Sometimes it's a condition of sale. So if you have a particular product and a customer says, or a prospect says, does it have this particular feature or will it do this? And it doesn't, but that's really important to the other person, that's a condition of sale. So it doesn't matter what you do, chances are you're not going to close that particular deal because you don't have the right product with the right features or the right service or whatever it might be. When it gets right down to the objection, I found quite often that when somebody expresses an objection, it's really an opportunity for us to show they're interested in making the deal happen if it's a legitimate objection, and they really want us to help them work through that process.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the message here is to salespeople listening is that the objection is the beginning of the sales process almost, because I've been on calls and in meetings when there's silence and there's nothing. And I can tell you there was nothing ever sold in that meeting because they were just kind of they were like kicking tires, and I didn't even know it. I was just being batted around in the room, and I didn't even know it. I mean, I'm sure you've been in those meetings too, is they're just silence, and it's not good silence. It's just like, okay, someone told me to meet with you. Please go on with your day, So
yeah.
We've all been in that uncomfortable situation, that's for sure. There's a lot of methods out there, Kelley, to the objection handling, the old feel, felt, found, and there's a lot of other techniques. Are there good working techniques to address an objection when it does come up?
The process that I've always used, and I learned this years ago from somebody else, it's similar to the feel, felt, found. It's a 4-step process, and it's essentially empathizing or with the other person. So it's an empathizing statement. So it could be, Mike, I know where you're coming from. I understand that our competition might be less expensive. And then clarify to find out really what they really mean by that, because quite often when somebody expresses an objection, it can have a variety of meanings, and if we don't understand the true rationale or the true reason somebody is expressing something, we can't possibly offer the right solution. So, for example, if somebody says, I'd like to think about it. Quite often what happens is we say, yes, okay, that's great, Mr. Prospect. I'll give you a shout in a couple of days, or email me or call me if you have any questions. What we don't know is what they need to think about or what concerns they have. So if I'm talking to you, we're talking about sales training, or we're talking about whatever. Let's just say it's sales training. And you say, Kel, this all sounds good. I really need to think about it for a little bit. The empathizing statement is, Mike, I completely get that. It's a relatively large investment. You want to make sure you're making the right investment, so you want to think about it first. So tell me, what are some of the concerns that you have, or what is it exactly that you really want to think through? And in asking that question, I'm going to try to get or help the prospect work through mentally what it is that they're concerned about or what they need to process before they can make that decision. Once they do that and they give me that true objection, then I'm just going to ask permission to offer a solution. It's something as simple as, Mike, I completely see where you're coming from. Would it be okay if I took a moment to explain how we could make this work, or how we could fit it into your budget, or how we could implement it, or whatever that objection might be? When the prospect gives me that yes, now he's going to be open to the solution, and that's the fourth step. And I find taking that process, it sounds long. It happens really in a matter of moments, and it just changes the dynamics of the conversation at that point in time and during that part of the sale.
Absolutely, and you bring up a great point there. It takes long, but really these are milliseconds. I mean, all we're doing is qualifying the objection. I see so many times, no matter how many years they've been out there, and I get a lot of pushback. I've been selling for 8,000 years or what have you when I'm doing one-on-one coaching, and I know it all, right? Kelley, do you know it all? I don't know it all. I mean, I'm constantly still learning about sales. It's evolving, et cetera. But when we're in these battles and we're talking to someone about an objection, it's okay. And by the way, if you don't know objections are coming, you probably shouldn't be in sales. Because it's always part of it. But just by asking the question back, there's been so many times, going back to the example I was just about to give, is that I'm in a call with someone, and at the end they'll be like, I need to think about it. Okay, great, thank you. It's like a vacuum comes into the room, and they start, it's like hilarious. It's like they pack up, like, okay, we're done. And I'm like, wait, whoa. What do you need to think about? Just slow it down. I don't know about you, but every time that someone asks that question back, the question usually back from the prospect is, I don't know what I'm going to think about. And I go, right, because it's like we've also, and I don't know if you agree with me on this one, Kelley, is we've trained our prospects to say, I'm going to think about it, call me back next week, because most salespeople, they don't follow up.
Agreed.
So, and here we are, chasing our tails around and around and around we go, because we've conditioned our prospects to say, call me next week, ask for more information, or let me think about it. And then all the salespeople out there don't know how to react to that. Now we keep chasing our tail around. We wonder why we're not moving the sale process forward.
So very true. So very true.
It is. I always find with the objection handling is just asking, why do you ask, or how do you mean, or tell me more is one of my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to think. We need to think about it. Tell me more. It's such a great one to keep them talking, because the last thing we want to be doing is talking. And it's just such a great thing to say, hey, we need to think about it. Tell me more. What are you going to be thinking about? And they're like, I didn't know that was coming back, because the last sales rep ran out of the room.
And what I love about that is then we change the dynamics of that conversation, so we don't get that conditioned or automated response. And now the person on the other side of the desk or the room is looking at us going, hey, this guy's different than the last person I talked to. Maybe I should sit up and pay attention.
Absolutely. And I find that I think people like that when you push back a little bit, or you just want to dig a little bit deeper or peel back the onion. You want to understand what's going on here at the business, because you care as a sales professional and you want to help them with their pain point. No one wants to do business with someone that is just running around delivering brochures, or it feels like they have to do more work than the salesman. That they don't return their phone calls, they're chasing them down. No one wants to deal with that. We're so busy nowadays that it just is so no one wants to waste any more time. So
agreed.
And also, I find one thing too is begin with the end in mind, and I'm a big believer with Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits, etc. Is that when you do begin in mind, you can diffuse the objection. So if you already know you're not the cheapest solution on the block, well, tell your prospect or client that right up front. Hey,
sure.
If you're shopping, don't you agree with that, Kelley?
I agree 100% because, and one of the approaches that I really love to use when I go and do a sales call and I'm doing a formal presentation to a prospect, and whether it's one person or 5 or a committee, whenever, as much as possible, I run through my presentation beforehand at least a few times, and by doing that, it helps me think of the potential objections that might come up, because I'm actually hearing what I'm saying, and as I'm practicing it, rehearsing it, I'm thinking about it from the prospect's perspective. So if they hear this, what might be some of those objections that or resistance that they might have, and in doing that, then I can incorporate that information right into the presentation, so we can actually preempt the objection.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you prep, and that's one of the important things, is to have a preparation of, before. I find a lot of times, Kelley, is that, most sales reps just kind of go in and they just wing it. They just kind of say, hey, I got a sales call here at 10 o'clock. I guess I'll do nothing and walk in. And the more prep work, imagine if your doctor did that too. You just walked in and you were laying there and like, yep, we're ready to go. Well, don't you got to clean the instruments? Nah, they're fine. Don't you got to get a nurse in here? I can do this myself. Been doing it for a long time. If you're going to be a true sales professional, let's up the game a little bit. Bring a folder, print out their website, LinkedIn. We can talk about that too towards the end of the show here too. It's about social media. Connect with these people and start to build a relationship is the most important part of that. Going into social media, I know you're big into it, and so am I. How does that go into the sales process now? How can a salesperson use social media?
There are so many different ways they can use it, and I don't profess to be a master at it. I'm pretty good at it, but I still don't think I've fully tapped the power of social media from a sales perspective. I think for the average salesperson, the way they can use it, you mentioned LinkedIn. I know that when I'm talking to a prospect that I've never had contact with before, the first thing I do is I go to their website, I do a Google search, I go to LinkedIn to see if I can find that contact person. Assuming I can, I can see their profile, I can see what they're interested in. Some people will have presentations posted on LinkedIn that they've done before, and whether they're from SlideShare or YouTube or whatever the case might be. I'll see if I can find them on Twitter. I'll see if I can find them on Facebook. And it just gives me a sense of who they are. I talked to one company just a few weeks ago, and it was the CEO of the company that I was speaking to, and he had done all these presentations at conferences. So I got a really good sense of his focus and what he believed in and what he was passionate about. And then during our conversation, I looked for ways to weave that in, and certainly not all of them, not taking every single presentation and saying, so, Mike, I saw you did this presentation and did this presentation, but just touched on some of the key points. And it showed that I had done a little bit of research beforehand and had a sense of who I was talking to.
Absolutely. And doesn't that just start the conversation in high gear instead of just in first? Maybe we're in third gear, and we're going to move up to fifth gear. And doesn't that make you feel good? At least it does when I'm the one on the other side of the table. Like, yeah, I was on your website, saw your video, looks like you're doing this, and that. And then, boy, I don't have to explain myself to this person. He or she already knows what I'm about, and they already have taken the time out. And plus, then I know that they care, or they've looked at least, versus the other person. I've met a lot of these. Hey, tell me more about your business. And I'm like, well, what do you think I do? I don't know. And I'm like, well, that's the end. That's the end of it, right?
Yeah.
People don't have any time, and if you're not going to care right now, and I'm a big believer in Malcolm Gladwell, and he wrote this book called Blink, and he calls it intuitive repulsion. And it's 3-second rule. It's like anything. You know, hey, we got off to the wrong foot. Very rare has that turned around. And it's the same thing in a sales call. If you start on the wrong foot, you're just shoveling and shoveling and shoveling, and you probably won't ever get out.
For sure.
But what about going to social media? I mean, with the LinkedIn profile, I mean, if people aren't using LinkedIn, I just think, to me, I love it. I think it's a business-to-business application. It's a professional profile, and you can do a lot with it. How do you use it? How do you use the tool?
Well, interestingly enough, when you said that everybody should be using it, I'm amazed at how many salespeople have never even heard of it. I did a workshop with a company a couple months ago, and one person in the group had a LinkedIn profile, and that was the boss. And the rest of the sales team was going, what's LinkedIn? And finally the boss said, well, it's kind of like Facebook for business. And they went, oh.
Right.
And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. So number one, if you're not on there, if you're not on LinkedIn, get on. From a sales perspective, I've seen some great salespeople. I think the best way to use it, I think there are a couple of ways. You can use it for prospecting, to reach out to your network, to find out who they know, who you need to know. So working through your contact list to get put in touch with other people, and I've used it that way. The other way is to help position yourself as an expert in what you do, in your particular industry, in your particular type of business, and that's just by getting involved in some of the groups that are on LinkedIn or by answering questions. And it sounds simple, and a lot of salespeople say, well, yeah, but I don't have time for that, or I'm not going to generate leads. But it's that type of exposure that builds up over a period of time. And I've generated business directly from LinkedIn. I had somebody that was on my newsletter list who we had connected on LinkedIn. She wanted her boss to bring me in to do some training. He connected with me via LinkedIn. It gave him a chance to see some of the answers that I provided in some of the groups and my approach and methodologies. And then we had a conversation. When we had that telephone conversation, it was like we had known each other for forever. So it was a really great door opener and icebreaker. And I made the cold call. Well, it was really a warm call, and it saved a whole bunch of time for both myself and my prospect.
You bring up a great temperature reading, warm call, and I do think it's the new cold call, warm call. I mean, why beat your head against the wall making phone calls when you can use this nice, robust tool, join a group, and then that's how you, like, I like sailing, or, I like cars or whatever. You can join these like-minded people, and then all of a sudden you see a CEO or someone that you could probably move in with, and you start the relationship. And how great is it just to kick off and go, hey, I didn't know you had this over the weekend, and that person, you've already created a friendship, and it's all through LinkedIn, no phone call, no nothing. I mean, it's amazing how it works, and if you're not using it, just jump right in. In fact, a quick social media, go ahead.
I think another avenue that gets missed, and this just hit me kind of between the eyes last week. I had done an interview for a magazine article, and the person interviewing me said, do you have anybody in your contact list that I could talk to about this topic as well? And they wanted somebody with that. It was on managing or spicing up sales meetings, so I gave it a perspective from a training perspective, and he wanted somebody who was actually in the trenches. So I had a prospect that I'm connected with on LinkedIn. We follow each other on Twitter, and I recommended him so that because I thought he could bring a different perspective. The interviewer talked to him, or the writer talked to him, and he had his name and his comments published in the article. So I thought that was kind of a cool way to connect with people and give them some additional visibility out there in the blog world. And who knows where that'll go. So if you can help others.
Absolutely. And you
Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny how you just bump into people. And a quick story is these two people were communicating on Twitter back and forth, and they had common interests. And then the one tweeted, "Hey, I'm at XYZ conference." The other one tweeted, it goes, "Hey, I'm at XYZ conference." Like, where are you? And it turns out, literally, Kelley, they were 6 feet apart. And, you know, so you talk about so close and yet so far. Well, the opposite's true with the internet too. You feel like these people are billions of miles away because it's online, but really they could be standing right next to you.
Yeah.
Because people are so into their phones. You know, I don't know if you see that, but I'm sure you do. It's like everyone has just got their head down into their phone. It's like silo.com. But I mean, I just think that if you're not using these tools, and also it's almost the first thing that I do now, and part of my sales process is even if someone sends me an email, I go, hey, do you mind if I connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
And people will say, yeah, go ahead, go for it. And
absolutely.
You know, I'm an open book. If I can help Kelley, him introduced to another company, I'm all in for it. And if Kelley can help me be introduced to another company, I'm sure he's all into it too. It's just a great tool out there. And going back to actually your original comment, Kelley, I'm surprised that people don't know it as well. And I had an opportunity to teach at a university last year, and I thought these kids were going to be faster than me, you know, faster, brighter, smarter. I go, so everyone completed a LinkedIn profile, and 90% of them didn't even know what it was. I thought that was amazing. I really did.
Well, I could probably say the same thing about my two daughters. They're active on Facebook, but I bet neither of them has a LinkedIn profile. And so that's a good reminder for me to say, hey, here's something you should consider.
Yeah, absolutely, especially if they're going to go out to the workforce. These were seniors, and I'm like, well, if not now, when? I mean, you really need to have that ability there, and I think it's just a great tool. Anyways, you know, social media definitely can start warming up your prospects, create the interest, and it can be a great tool for everyone to use out there. And if you're not using it, just like Kelley and I said, just jump in. Probably takes a good hour if you want to, you know, get involved in it a little bit more. Have your photo ready, have a resume with you, and start connecting to people. It's just a great tool. So.
And the other benefit too about that whole social media is when people have had the chance to see you interact with others, they get a sense for who you are, so their resistance ends up being greatly reduced because they feel like they know you, they got a better sense of who you are. If their resistance is down, then there are going to be fewer objections.
Absolutely, because you're meeting them on the same level. If you and I have common interests, it starts us off on a faster pace, and then the objection handling is going to decrease over time. And also, I just love what diffuse the objection. Again, going back to if you know you're not the cheapest, if you know your competitor has this, if you know this, if you've done your homework and your research, then you bring those up front. I just think that's just a great thing to do. Kelley, we're almost out of time, and it goes by fast when we're having fun talking about sales. I could talk about it for days.
No kidding.
But tell the listeners a little bit more about how they can reach out to you, and you got some books out there, some training, and you got a great website filled with tips and tricks, and just kind of close us out here.
For sure. Yeah, the first thing I'd suggest is visit my site. And as Mike mentioned at the beginning of the program, it's www.fearless-selling.ca. You'll find tons of free articles. Suggest that you sign up for my newsletter. It's one piece of practical sales and motivation advice that comes out by email every Monday morning. It's free to subscribe. And while you're on the site, take a look at the self-study programs I have. I've got a whole variety of audio programs so that you can listen to in the car, when you're at the gym, wherever you happen to be, and they're all designed to help you improve your sales and get better at what you do.
Absolutely, and I subscribe to Kelley's newsletter, so I get it every Monday, and I love it, 59 seconds. It's a nice article just to keep me in tune, and I'm always learning myself. If there's a better mousetrap out there, I want to know about it too. So, you know, why struggle? Why struggle? So, but I thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and hope you have a great week, and I wish everyone good luck on their next sales call, and tune in next Wednesday at 12. Thank you so much, Kelley.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
Bye now.